Verstappen's early career was marred by a series of unnecessary high-profile crashes, as well as awkward media encounters, but the teenager has matured just in time for Red Bull to provide him with a championship-winning car. Much of that has been attributed to his father, Jos, who was unable to match his son's success despite a long and illustrious career. Verstappen Sr.'s career took off almost as quickly as his son's. After impressing in early testing, he was given a chance with Michael Schumacher's championship-winning Benetton team in 1994. However, his time in F1 could have ended in tragedy when a pit lane fire created one of the sport's most iconic images, with Jos escaping with only minor burns. Back on track, he finished third in Hungary and Belgium, and he appeared to be on his way to stardom. However, that would be his only career podiums, as Jos spent the majority of his 107-race career looking for new teams and narrowly missing out on the rostrum again. His motorsport career did help him in finding Max's mother, Sophie Kumpen, who has been rated as one of the world's best go-karters in her time by the likes of Jenson Button and Christian Horner. When Jos left Benetton in 1994, he took with him a close friendship with Schumacher, who met his son Max while working at Ferrari. They also teamed up for an interview in 2002 and were asked about their then toddler sons, Max and Mick, competing in Formula One one day. "We've never had any sort of argument in our friendship," Schumacher said, "but I think this could be the first time if our sons would be racing each other. I think horse racing, or golf, is a much better sport for our kids," Schumacher continued. "Or play tennis," Verstappen added, "but I will really help him whatever he wants to play. If he wants to play football, I'll do whatever I can to get the best team. And it's the same in go-karting or tennis." Jos, on the other hand, also has a dark side. In 2000, he received a 5-year suspended prison sentence for fracturing a man's skull in an incident at a karting track. Verstappen won Le Mans in 2008 after leaving Formula One. He later went on to manage his son and has been alongside the championship leader ever since. In fact, an iconic Jos Verstappen clip from the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix has become defining, with the senior Verstappen in pieces after his son clipped the wall during a stunning qualifying lap, costing him pole position. When it comes to his son's title rival, Jos has been less than complimentary, stating that he only admires him on the track. "I never speak to Lewis. He doesn't need to speak to me. I'm nothing to him. I respect him as a driver, but the rest? Nothing," he said. Max and Lewis only speak on the podium, very little. When I see Max with other drivers, I think they get on very well. But with Lewis, nothing. Lewis is in his own world. I did F1, compared to Max, I was nowhere. But I talked to some of the drivers, and they are all very friendly, or just say hello or whatever. We are on the plane together many times, always the same group of drivers, and we have a lot of fun. But there are some drivers who don't look at you, who look at the ground. Hamilton was famously managed by his father, Anthony, until the relationship breakdown in 2010. The Verstappens have outlasted in that regard, but as history has shown, too much passion in the garage can be a bad thing. He saw me as a lunatic. The 2021 world champion was not known for being a great qualifier until his title-winning season, but he now has 13 pole positions in Formula One, 10 of which came in 2021. The Dutchman's talent as a racer has been undeniable since he first appeared on the grid as a 17-year-old, but his father's story about qualifying dates back to the previous year, 2014, in F3. "I even hung over the pit wall in Formula 3 to encourage him to go faster. I have to say, it helped," said Jos during an interview with his son's sponsor, Car Next. "He saw me as a lunatic, hanging over the pit wall. Luckily, he doesn't need that now. It's in him, and he brings it out now. He knows how to qualify." At the beginning of his career in Formula 3, he had to search for that perfect lap. He has improved enormously in Formula 1. Now he is the man to beat on the track. Jos Verstappen threw everything at his son's career between his first karting outing and Max's final world championship victory. He worked on his chassis and engines in his workshop during the day while Max was at school, and they tested twice a week. They drive over 100,000 kilometers a year in a van across the Netherlands, Belgium, and beyond. "We knew exactly which engine was the best and knew what carburetors were richer, so everything was sorted," Jos says. "I knew exactly which engine we had to use and things like that. And of course, Max had to set up the carburetors for that. That's a feeling a driver needs to have, and I think he was very good at that. He was very precise on what he liked to have in his kart." Max appreciated this education more than his school. "It's difficult to keep up with school, especially when you start driving internationally," Max says. "Especially when you start driving internationally. It becomes quite difficult to keep up to speed with school," says Max. "From when I was like 11, 12 years old, it became quite tricky. I'm not the person who likes to work on the engine. My dad really enjoys doing that. I always loved driving more. but I think it's really important that you understand what's going on. I was always involved, looking at what my dad was doing and understanding what he was doing, but I never had that feeling of doing it myself. Verstappen was exposed to this way of working during his karting apprenticeship. The Verstappens collaborated with the PEX racing team, a CRG customer, to run out of their awning, but the father and son team was still in charge of their own machinery. Jos would continue to prepare the engines on his own dyno. I don't think many people had the guidance from a very young age, like I had, reflects Max. They catch up, they learn a lot, but from a very young age, I just learned a lot straight away. This went beyond Jos's insistence that his son understands the mechanical side. The priority was driving. Jos was determined to make Max a better driver than him and to see his son reach the heights he had hoped to achieve himself in Formula 1. Some familiar sounding personal stories emerged from this period in the Verstappens' lives, such as Jos sending Max out without telling him about certain changes he had made to the car to improve his feedback, or continuing to test even when the rain came and most people packed up and went home. But there were less conventional methods. Even in races, I told him because he was winning so easily, for example, that he couldn't overtake in a certain corner or certain part of the track, so he had to find different spots to do that. It was just to make it more difficult for him, to find other ways to overtake or not. Feeling was significant to Jos. This is especially true when you are young. Data had been a rare commodity during his own junior career, and he didn't want Max to become dependent on it. He wanted his son to understand where the grip was in wet conditions, what he could see with his eyes versus how it felt through the wheel, and how the car would react on different lines in as many situations as possible. Verstappen was taught to learn by doing, to figure out his own limits while also understanding where the car could be faster. He was also told not to lie. If he didn't notice a difference, he should say so, and he believed in the process. It's funny, even in junior categories, there was a big difference in how teams are operating in terms of the amount of time you spend on track. Verstappen says alongside his father in a late 2020 interview, hosted by David Coulthard. Some people would spend more time on looking at data. I think we were a bit more of the just drive type because you learn while driving. A lot of teams at that time, they're looking at data for 45 minutes, Jos adds. I said to them, I don't want that. Just give them time on track. That's what they need. They need to feel the car, make changes to it, but they were more into data. Max replies, you can look at a brake graph for 45 minutes, but I'm not changing it. Am I if I'm looking at it? I have to go out on track and understand and try different things. Jos reflects on the lessons he tried to impart on his son in a simple way. As a father, you always want to help your son as best as possible. I tried to push him in the right direction. There are unsettling stories. It reflects through a tough parenting style, at least in a competitive context. But the younger Verstappen almost always smiles when he recalls those memories, and he believes he is unquestionably a better driver as a result. After all, that was the driving force behind Jos's most odd or questionable methods. Influence Max as much as possible while making him better than his father. That's why, as harsh as it can be sometimes, both father and son fully support the process that shaped Verstappen into the driver he is. What do you think about Jos Verstappen's influence on Max? Let us know in the comments below. Also, if you're new to this channel, subscribe and click on the notification bell to get notified when we upload more content. We'll see you in the next one.